These are power figures, and the first thing you should notice about them is that they are not depicted with the quality of the cool. They are, in fact, very aggressive, very strong, very powerful, the opposite of the cool. And the reason for that is that their purpose is not the same. It is a purpose of maintaining social control and enforcing the laws. These objects, and O'Reilly's is on the right in our textbook, 7-9, figure 7-9. These come from the region of Central Africa, from Congo, which in the 13th century had a fairly large and impressive kingdom made up of many groups of people. These folks acquired wealth through trade in ivory, copper, and slaves. In the 15th century, the Portuguese will arrive in this region and a gradual conversion to Christianity will begin, as we'll see later when we take a look at maps of religion in the continent of Africa. The power figures that we're looking at, and there are three different kinds, represent a collaboration between the artist who makes the object and the ritual specialist or priest who alters the object, and the participant or the person who needs to use the object, who will also alter the object by pounding a nail or a piece of metal into the surface of the object. Okay, what this means is that the work of art is never done. It is continually evolving, and it is continually changing. The objects, all three of them, are referred to as hunters, and that's the term that O'Reilly uses, hunter figures. They have a purpose of hunting for answers to solve our problems. They're also called power figures, and sometimes they're called enforcers. They are created to find answers to our problems, but also perhaps to find an evildoer, somebody who's done something to harm us or to steal one of our possessions. Sometimes these power figures are used for legal issues. Since they are hunters, we can have human beings, we can also have animals. These animals sometimes are, and that would be in the center of my slide, these animals may be dogs, which would be used in hunting, or they may be wild animals, representing a kind of link to the realm of the spirit. There are two main poses. One is a hunter with his arm upright, kind of tipping a little bit forward, in a rather aggressive, or let's say threatening posture, often with a lance in his hand, as if he's going after someone or something. The figure on the left is standing also in a powerful pose, but this individual is standing with his hands on his hips. These figures have attachments. Some of these attachments are visibly placed on the surface, nails or pieces of iron that have been pounded in. But in addition to that, power substances have been added. There are usually containers that are placed in the center of these figures, and those containers have magical, powerful substances, including things like maybe snakes' heads, beads, nails, in addition, plus horns or maybe birds' claws. Okay, what I'm suggesting is that parts of animals or birds that would be powerful creatures, are added into the compartment that is in the middle of our figure. These figures work this way. Let's say that I think everybody knows my purse was stolen. I go to my local priest and I ask for help in finding my missing purse. What he would then do, if he didn't have a power figure, would be to send me to the local carver to get a power figure made. That power figure then would be placed in the possession of the priest. The priest would then fill its compartment, and let's take a look at another example of this, where it's a little clearer. There you go. The one on the left is located in the University Museum at Penn. Okay, we're going to fill that compartment with power substances, and then I, as a participant, am going to be called upon to pound a nail into the surface of the power figure, calling on that power figure as it connects to the spirit realm with the help of the priest to become activated, to help to literally find the thief or the evildoer who's taken my possessions. If I am successful in finding the return of my purse, then what I'm going to do is go back to the priest and tell him this, and I'm likely to actually remove the nail from the figure, which helps us to see that this is not just a collaborative work, but a work that is constantly changing. Why would this work? Well, in a small community where word got out, perhaps to the person who'd taken my purse, belief in the object as an enforcer figure could indeed cause that person to return my lost property. So this worked essentially because people believed in it and had faith in the system and belief in the spirit realm as well. On the surface of the contained package on the center of our figure, usually there would be a mirror that would be placed, and the mirrors, you can see a little bit left in the one that's in pen. The mirrors refer to vision across worlds, as if the power figure is going to be able to travel from this realm to the spirit realm, to be able to get the aid of the spirits, perhaps our ancestors, who would assist the power figure in finding the culprit. Or sometimes these power figures are used as we make oaths in front of them, perhaps a treaty, perhaps a property transfer, and two people would come together in front of the power figure, each of them pounding in a nail, swearing that they were going to do X, Y, or Z. The enhancer figure then would then make certain that those participants would fulfill their obligations. Okay, I've also got the word in this slide, kaolin. Kaolin is a white clay that is often associated with the realm of the ancestors and with the realm of the dead. So that adds to power in the figure, and in particular the one that's on the right. I'd like you to see that there's kaolin that's been placed on the eyes as if it is a passageway to the realm of the spirits. These images then are used for purposes of social control and also for purposes of law enforcement, to take care of society and to help to maintain a social balance within society. These objects also are very heavily collected. You're going to find these in museums. So this is one reason that you need to be aware of them. However, the reason that they were collected is probably not a very good reason. The collectors had preconceptions about these images, the aggressiveness, the powerfulness, representing to them their ideas of what Africa was all about as a continent, and also misreading these figures as images associated with voodoo. For our purposes, we do in fact want to associate them with social control and law enforcement. I also want you to know that these images represent the opposite of the cool. These are aggressive figures, and the purpose of the aggressive postures, the standardized poses, is to help the figure hunt for answers to our problems, and by doing that, to help to maintain social balance and work. Essentially, this is a form of a maintenance religion again, to maintain order and harmony in our world. Okay, that means we have ticked off two of the examples I've given us. Maintaining social values and teaching, that would be the proverbs that we see in Asante Goldthwaite's. We're now on enforcing laws and strengthening social control, which we can see in our power figures. Each group on the continent of Africa would have engaged in the use of art to cover all of these broad aspects, to provide a kind of social and religious and political stability that could be shared by everyone and enjoyed by everyone. Okay, this is the set of maps of the continent of Africa, along with a chart that will give us a little bit of an idea of the belief system or systems that still remain in Africa. Today, Africa consists of practices of Islam, Christianity, and animism. In some places, there's a blending and a mixing, and you might find that people are actually practicing more than one faith in a particular region. Most of the art that you're going to see in museums is going to refer to the belief system of animism, which is pre-colonial. This is the indigenous faith system of Africa, the continent. Okay, I'd like you to look at the maps. The top row of maps shows us the changing degree to which animism was practiced in Africa once outside influence began to come in. I'm sorry I don't have a more recent map. This is the best I can do. So you're going to have to extrapolate a little bit. The lower line of maps helps us to see, at least as of 1990, that in the north, and I'm looking at the center map, in the north it is primarily Islam that is the major religion. Going to the right, it is primarily Christianity that is the major religion in the south. If you go further to the left, you're going to see an overlay of indigenous belief system that lingers and that still remains in the territory covered largely by Islam and Christianity. Even today, there is the practice of animism, but it is the traditional faith that, as you can imagine, is over time shrinking and giving way to Islam and Christianity. Okay, let me say something about animism so we're comfortable with it, because it is the faith, the indigenous belief system that applies to the works of art largely shown in our textbook. Animism is the belief that everything, all living and non-living things, has a life force or an energy or a vital force associated with it. This quantity of life force is ranked, beginning with the creator, the supreme deity, who would have the most of it, coming down through the nature spirits and the ancestor spirits, then going down to, in a lesser degree of animistic life force, to the very powerful living human beings, then to you and to me, then to the trees, the plants, the animals, and finally to the inanimate objects that are surrounding you, like, let's say, the laptop on which you are working right now. The thing about this belief system that I think is pretty beautiful is that we are all tied together, because everything, everybody, all the spirits, all the plants in nature and the trees and the animals, we all share the same kind of vital force linking us together. What we're going to do as we attempt to practice religion that we would define as animism is to harness the life force, particularly of the spirits and of the ancestors. So we're going to address our rituals to them as intermediaries and hope that these spirits will assist us and bring well-being to our community. Okay, this means that the spirits can act in the world of the living, and we need to do everything we can to encourage the spirits to assist us here. Hey, this is an example you have on our right in the slide, 7.26 from Mr. O'Reilly. This is an example of continuous indigenous religion practice using an artwork in the West Coast, particularly among the Bamana people, excuse me, a group that lives in Mali and survives as agriculturalists. And what you're looking at is a Chawara. The Chawara is a mythic creature. You're going to find, and there's great variation in what these look like, you're going to find that they often look like antelopes, sometimes antelope combined with human, sometimes combined with anteater shapes. It is believed that these figures represent the nature spirit that taught the Bamana agriculture, and these objects are used in dance rituals to call on the fertility spirits, the nature spirits, to help with the good planting and the raising of crops, and at the same time to teach the tradition of agriculture to the young. In other words, this performance is observed by the young members of society, the males of society, and it's going to teach the young to actually engage in agriculture in the future as they become men. Let me show you some more of these. Okay, they do vary across the region. Each group of people is going to have a slightly different form for the Chawara, but at the end of the day, they tend to serve essentially the same purpose. Although, of course, that purpose may indeed have evolved over time. These images often occur in pairs. The male is on the right, the female with a baby is on the left. They would be worn on the head by athletes, by young males who could engage very professionally in the performance of a dance. At the same time, this dance would be accompanied by drums, and we would have women singing in the background. They would be singing praise songs to the farmers, and the young members of society would be watching this to learn exactly how it would happen for them as they grow to be adults within the community, both as male figures and as female figures. Okay. This is a view actually showing what a performance might look like. And Mr. O'Reilly does talk about the dance of these figures, that they are often danced in pairs. You can see this on the right. O'Reilly gives us a rather detailed discussion of this as it represents fertility of crops, but also perhaps of human fertility as well. He talks about the union of the sun being the male Chawara and the earth and the water being the female. I can't guarantee that that was a universal idea in West Africa. He also talks about the raffia, the grasses that cover the figure's body, wearing the mask on their heads. O'Reilly interprets the raffia as water, as this then with the earth, the water, and the sun would provide everything that we need for agriculture. He also goes on to say that the horns of the Chawara, in the forms where the horns go straight up, may in fact refer to the millet stalk, which is a staple food for the people in this region. Okay, again, I can't tell you that that's universally believed or that it was universally believed over time, but it certainly is one interpretation. What I can tell you is the dance was intended to elicit help from the realm of the spirits to ensure successful planting and raising of crops, and that the people originally doing the dancing, who danced, quote unquote, I'm using dance here as a verb, to dance danced these masks, were believed to be possessed by an outside spirit, a nature spirit, or an ancestral spirit who was coming down to assist in the ritual of getting the planting season going. And for that reason, the identity of the figure is hidden with the raffia covering the body. Okay, I do want you to understand that these figures, carved figures, were intended to be danced, to be used in motion, and never intended to be placed in museums, which is the way, in fact, that they are today. Before I leave this set of slides, I also want you to see that the dancer, as he dances, is holding a staff, and that is referencing the hose that would be used in the field in order to move the soil and to prepare the soil for planting. All of this is intended to help the young members of society observe the old and to prepare them to be good farmers and to be good husbands. Okay. Another set of slides. I would like you to be aware of the fact also that as traditions change, The dancers are less and less covering their bodies completely. And when we see dancers with Wara headdresses and they're not completely covered, what it suggests is that these dances are continuing perhaps more as a tourist attraction than as a traditional religious practice. They are being maintained, but often animistic worldviews in the 21st century certainly are becoming weakened. Before we leave this, I also need to leave you with a quote. Mr. O'Reilly gives this quote to you in the textbook, page 257. It's a particularly important one. It was a teacher at Yale who studied African American art, Robert Ferris Thompson, who wrote a book, African Art in Motion, who first really taught us to understand that African art was created for a purpose, and that purpose often involved dance and music, that the objects were never intended to be static. So let me just read you Mr. Thompson. Quote, Africa thus introduces a different art history, a history of danced art, defining in the blending of movement and sculpture, textiles and other forms, bringing into being their own inherent goodness and vitality. Dance can complete the transformation of a cryptic object into doctrine. Dance redoubles the strength of visual presence. Dance spans time and space. Dance extends the impact of a work of art to make a brilliant image seem more brilliant than could be imagined by ordinary men. Okay. For Robert Ferris Thompson, then, the dancing of these objects actually makes these objects work, makes them active participants in helping African communities to function and to maintain balance.